This is the BS4 podcast, and I'm your host, Bria Villa. A quick disclaimer, this episode was filmed 7 months before the wildfires that are currently taking place in LA. Watching these fires destroy communities, leaving people with absolutely nothing and hundreds of thousands of people displaced is absolutely devastating. Please keep the city and the people who have called it home in your prayers. It is so easy to feel helpless during these times, but what you want to do for everyone suffering, you can at least do for one person. Please spread kindness, love, grace, empathy, and awareness. It'll have a ripple effect. Taking care of one person will inevitably allow them to take care of others. If you are able to donate, please check out the links in the description to see how you can help. And now let's get back to the episode. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to the BS4 podcast. I'm your host, Bria Villa, and I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for tuning in. I am back in California, okay? West Coast, Best Coast. That is a real statement. I'm back in sunny Los Angeles. I am from Southern California originally, and I just love being home. Like, being here, being in this energy, like California air just hits different. So I'm in the best mood. I've been in the best mood since I've gotten here, and I'm here for the next week. So I'm really excited. All my people are here, and I'm stoked about it. So my brothers live here. I actually have one of my little brothers in the room on the other side of this camera today, and he's watching me do what I've grown to love most, which I'm so happy about. And I got to see my godson and my best friends, and they will actually be on the podcast. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I'm so stoked to talk about today's topic because it is one that's really important to me. It's something that I've learned a lot about recently in the last few years and how much your word carries weight. And also, if you say something and you say that you're going to do it, you need to do it. So today's episode is about showing up for yourself and just showing up, period. So today, the B is for bond because our word is bond. So recently I was thinking about, how many times that I've said I'm going to do something and don't do it. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll make sure that we hang out or we'll make sure that we see each other. And in the back of my head, I'm like an introvert and I'm like, I'm not going to see this person. So I started thinking about that and I was like, I don't like that I've put that energy out there or said that I'm going to do something if I didn't actually have the intentions of following through. And so I really started to think about your word being bond and not even commitment to other people, but the commitment that you make to yourself. And so I was actually reading this article recently and it was talking about how in the past, I'll make sure I link the article, by the way, that way y'all can read it. But it was talking about how in the past, for a long time, predating modern technology, predating an advanced legal system, what humans literally used to do before we even had contracts, our word was literally bond. We would take an oath and we would say that we were going to do something. And it was so important and so powerful to uphold and keep that oath to the point where, that's really what marriage was held together by is like, I vow to love you through sickness, through health, whatever. And that vow was sacred. And again, predating legalities and all this stuff. Now, if you don't do something, you can sue someone and that's sufficient for like not keeping your word. But in the past, our word used to carry so much more weight than I feel like it carries today. And I was thinking about this a lot for myself because I don't want to be someone who says things just to say them and not actually follow through with it. And I think for the most part, I'm not that way. I pretty much don't agree to things unless I truly feel aligned with what I'm doing. But I think it's really important to pay attention to the things that we're saying and then following through on those things. So I personally believe that success comes from showing up, being consistent and showing up and saying that you're going to do something. I think sometimes we look at success of like, oh, I have to beat out the next person or someone who's doing this, I just have to do better than them. But I actually believe in life, there's just natural attrition. And that natural attrition comes from people who don't follow through with their word and people who don't show up. Like people will just weed themselves out And it's really about, are you the person who's going to consistently be there and show up and be reliable every single time? And so, as I've started to kind of reinvent the way that I want to show up in the world and the way that I think about things, to me, the biggest thing that I've been focused on is controlling the controllables. And in controlling the controllables, it just means showing up and consistently showing up. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. If I promise or give my word, that is important to me. And I even do that with myself. For example, working out has really been like a huge part of my life journey. In the last year and a half, I've taken it a lot more seriously and I look at it completely different than how I used to look at it. So I was an athlete through high school. And so I used to view working out as like just a part of my identity. Then post high school, I used to look at working out as, oh, I just want a certain body type. Like I want to look a certain way. So I committed to working out for an image that I think was really hard to attain. And then, post that, I just like stopped working out because I was like, I'm not going to attain this image that I think I'm going to reach. So what's the point in doing it? And now I've changed my mindset in the last year and a half about just overall health, wellness, and a commitment to myself. So for me, working out is about showing up and showing up for myself consistently. And it doesn't have to look a certain way, it doesn't have to be a certain type of workout. It's just committing to the fact that I'm going to move my body and have mobility because I want to and because it's the right thing to do for me and because I told myself I'm going to. And so even in small things of just showing up for you, like if I don't show up for myself in those moments, how am I going to expect anybody to show up for me in times that I need it? And so I started to take that more seriously with myself. I started making oaths with myself saying, Bria, you are going to show up today. You are going to move your body. You're going to stretch for 30 minutes, whatever it takes. But when you commit to doing that thing, you need to make sure that you actually do it. And so I have been. And for the last year and a half, I would say my body has drastically changed in the way that I feel, in the way that I look, in the strength that I have, in the endurance that I have. I literally ran in Newport Beach this last weekend 7 miles. I didn't run the whole 7 miles, okay? But I walked like 30% of it and ran 70%. Me, a year and a half ago, I never even imagined me doing that. I didn't first of all, I hate running, okay? Like, I have always hated running. I've never been a runner. As much as I feel like my dad has always told me, like, I'm built for running, like, I'm meant to be a long distance runner, I hate it. It is horrible. It makes me feel like I'm gonna die every single time I do it. But recently, I made a commitment to myself. I'm like, I'm gonna try running and just see how it feels and see what my body does. And as soon as you know it, I make that commitment to myself. And every single time that I try running, I get better and better each time. And so that's a small way that I've made a commitment to myself. But could I have run, let alone walked 7 miles a year and a half ago? Hell no, not even close. I would have ran a mile and been like, Bria, you're done. You gotta stop. You can't do this. But now, since I made this commitment to myself, and since I'm honoring my commitment and following through with my word, I've gotten a lot better and I've grown a lot because of it. And to me, that success is the level of growth that I've had in the last year and a half. And also, transparently, like I feel, again, like I look the best I've ever looked, but that's because I feel the best I've ever felt. And that's because of a commitment that I made to myself. And that's just, again, a small thing. That's a fitness journey, but that's something that was really important to me in showing up for myself and keeping my word to myself. But how this has actually transpired in my life, especially in my career, is showing up in the moments that other people may not show up for and not comparing myself to them, but just knowing that I will always be that person that's reliable is so key for me. And so that's actually how I got to where I'm at in my career now. A few years ago, when I started to really grow in my career, and I've told my story about my career a little bit, and I'll get more in depth with that at some point. But in my journey, before I transitioned from a sales role into a consulting role, my role didn't exist yet. So I wasn't even pitching for a position that I could see myself getting into. I was creating a position for myself. And to me, the one way that I knew how to do that is just to make sure that I show up in any given circumstance and be somebody that's reliable. And so I actually met someone who's my former boss, but now one of my best friends, and she will come on the podcast at some point. Her name is Corinne. Corinne and I became virtual friends, but we both work, of course, for the same company. And at the time, we were in similar roles. And when her and I originally met, she was striving to start a new division in our company. And I really believed in her vision and essentially put myself in every opportunity to get in front of her when I could and be as consistent as possible. That way, when that division grows, because it's a division I believe in, I'll create an opportunity for myself in that division. I'll create a position that's going to be right for me in my career. And so I was persistent, like professionally persistent, damn near annoying. Like we joke all the time now how annoying I was. But to me, it's because I wanted to show up and make sure that I was showing up. That way, one, I'm unforgettable. Like people remember me and my reputation for always being the girl that shows up. But then two, because I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. So any opportunity that I got to insert myself into what the future may look like for that division, I took it and made sure that she knew that I was readily available whenever she needed me. And it started to really unfold that way. There would be meetings that she would be going on. She would message me really quick and be like, "Hey, I have this meeting this afternoon. Do you want to join it?" Immediately, yes. In the mornings, I would actually message her a couple of times a week and be like, "Hey, is there anything that you have going on this week that I can make sure that I join?" And she would be like, "Actually, yeah, I have this, that, and that." I didn't wait for her to come to me with everything. I just showed up consistently and started to insert myself into those opportunities. And the more that I'm getting on different meetings with her, the more that we're getting in front of clients, the more that I'm starting to learn her vision, the more I'm positioning myself to be in a role that will eventually support this division when it launches. And so next thing you know, fast forward, right? A few months of doing that, she gets promoted, she starts the division, she gives me a phone call and she's like, "Hey, when this division is getting started, I may call you at some point to get your help, right? And if an opportunity presents itself, if it comes down to me potentially being able to hire, then you're going to be my first phone call." And I was like, "Okay, period. Say less." She's like, "It may be a few months, it may be a year. We'll see. I don't know, but I'm just letting you know in advance." Right. And so in my mind, again, made a commitment to myself. Anything that she needs during this time, I'm going to make sure that I'm available for her. This is going to be top of my priority list. In addition, I'm going to make sure that I'm always reaching out, checking in to see how things are going. Right. But the fact that I was her first phone call when everything was kicking off is because I showed up. I showed up in the moments that she didn't have anybody else. I showed up in the moments that she really needed additional support, even though it wasn't a part of my job function. I wasn't getting paid to do it. There was hardly any benefit to me other than what may come in the future, but that wasn't promised. But I was showing up and she remembered that I was showing up. I mean, it was really hard to remember because I was annoying the hell out of her for so long. But then fast forward, she gets a green light to hire and build a team, and I'm her first phone call. And of course, did my due diligence, still interviewed for the role, but I essentially helped create the role. And so it was a no-brainer for me to step into it. And so a few months later, I'm getting promoted into a position to help spearhead and launch a new division in a nearly $5 billion company, something that nobody's ever done before. But it's because I showed up consistently and I kept my word to myself that I would continue to show up. And then I presented myself to her as somebody who's reliable, somebody who's going to be there when you need it and going to take care of things when things need to get taken care of. And so I think oftentimes we tell ourselves, like, "Oh, I'm going to see this person when I see them," or "I'm going to give them the runaround because I don't actually plan on hanging out with them." And I'm so guilty of this. Like, I do this all the time, or I was doing it. I've gotten a lot better now. But now I've just gotten used to saying, like, the dead honest truth. Like, "No, I can't do this. No, I can't commit to this. Yes, I will be there and actually be there when I say I'll be there." If you're showing up on time or late or whatever the case is, at least communicating that. That way your word is bond because there will be natural attrition just based on people not showing up.
So you don't even really have to beat other people out in this world. You just have to consistently show up and people will remember who does. And it's funny because this also applies to just whether it be business success, whether it be, like I said, my workout journey, whether it be dating. Like, nobody likes to date an inconsistent person. Okay. Like, me personally, there was someone that I met and he's great and has an awesome personality. We really clicked. Like, we have good chemistry, but he is the most inconsistent person I've ever met in my life, and it makes me severely unattracted to him. Like, he does not show up. And to me, that is like a make or break on whether or not my energy is gonna be in your presence, whether I want your energy in mine. And I think it's just so important that you keep your word. Like, whatever your word is, if you say it, stick to it. And if you feel like you're gonna go back on your word, communicate that. But still be the person who's consistent, still be the person that shows up. People will start to fall by the wayside just because they're not showing up. But you have that one thing that you can control and make sure that you control it. And so for me, especially within, the next few days, what I do is I'll rent out a studio space for this podcast and I'll film episodes back to back to back. And to me, one of the biggest commitments that I have for myself right now is showing up for myself in this podcast. I am not going to do this perfect. I am not going to get it right all the time. There may be some episodes that I like more than others. They're still going to go out. Why? Because I committed to doing this. I committed to seeing it through, and I'm going to continue to show up. And there may be some episodes you hate, and there may be some episodes you love. That's fine. But I'm still showing up for me, and I'm showing up authentically. And no matter how this turns out, I'm still going to do it because that's the commitment that I made to myself. And so, all that to say, it's so important to just show up. Show up for yourself first and foremost. You can't show up for anybody else, nor will anyone show up for you if you don't even know how to show up for yourself. And if you can't even keep your word to yourself, in what world are you going to expect people to keep their word to you? For real. If you told yourself you're going to work out tomorrow morning, get your ass up and go work out. Okay? If you said, "Oh, I'm gonna sleep in tomorrow," okay, then honor yourself and say, "Yeah, I'm gonna sleep in tomorrow because that's a commitment I made to myself." And that's fine. But don't be saying one thing and doing another and then expect the results to be how you want them to be, right? Like, if I'm saying I'm going left and I'm going right and still expecting to get at the same destination, make that make sense. It's not gonna work, okay? So, to me, this journey, this process, podcasting, being behind a camera, I'm literally sweating because these lights are so hot. But what am I going to do? Still show up for myself. And truly, as much as, this is for the listeners too, and I appreciate you so, so much for being here and listening and going on this journey with me. This is more for me than it is for anybody else. And it'll always be that way. This is a creative outlet for me. This is something that I just told myself that I was going to do. And I'm going to continue to see it through, whether you like it or not. But I hope you do. I really hope you like it because that'll keep me going. That'll help motivate me more. But I made this commitment to myself and I'm going to see it through. And whether you like it or not, that's fine. And I'm also not in competition with anybody. At the end of the day, I'm doing this because I want to do it, because I feel good about it, because I committed to myself in doing it. There are other podcasters who are so successful that like genuinely look up to. They inspire me, they motivate me. I'm not in competition with them, right? But what I do know for sure is that I'll continue to show up. That's it. So make sure that you're keeping your word to yourself. If you say you're going to do it, do it. Otherwise, don't say it. Be honest, because you have to look yourself in the mirror every day and be like, "Okay, did I do what I say I was gonna do?" It feels phony to show up and be like, yeah, I said I was gonna do this today, but I'm not actually gonna do it." What kind of life is that? Not one that I wanna live, personally. So, I really hope that if there's one thing that you take away from this, it's just consistency and showing up and keeping your word to yourself, because your word is bond, and it should be bond. There was a point where it was. And if you are not seeing that through, then what's the point? You might as well not even say it. So, all that to say, the B is for bond this week. And I'm really excited to continue to go on this journey with you, continue to show up. If you say you're going to show up and listen to my podcast and watch my podcast, you better come through on your word. Okay. If you say you're going to like it, if you say you're going to subscribe, if you say you're going to repost, you better come through. Otherwise, don't see it. Don't hurt my feelings. Okay. But if you can, please share, like, comment, subscribe. This is on YouTube. It's on every podcast platform you could possibly think of. And I'm really, really excited to continue to go on this journey with y'all and just keep showing up for ourselves. Like, that is the way that this is supposed to go. You only have one life, and you might as well do what you mean or do what you say what you mean. So that's all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next week.